Good afternoon and welcome to Thriving Tuesday Moments of Encouragement, or TTMOE at 4:30. We're grateful for you who are here already. Hi, Miss Lucy. Hi, Bert. It's good to have both of you here. Uh, hey, my Joy. How are you? Hey, Britt. We are here. We're going to just kind of talk about what we're going to talk about for a few moments so some people can populate. Um, they wait till they get the notification, and sometimes that comes a few seconds after we begin. So today we're gonna I'm piggybacking on my birthday, and I thank you all for your birthday wishes. But one of the things that I do at birthday time is to take time to reflect on what life has been up to that point, and how I've navigated through life, and to take a step back and to be still and quiet and to think on some things. Hey, Deljon. So this past week and weekend, I took some moments, really not as deep as I have in the past, because I've been trying to, as a friend of mine told me, every 3 months to start doing that reevaluation and start looking at things so that I'm not trying to do big sweeping changes or big sweeping understandings of things that have happened all at the same time. However, one of the things I recognized is that sometimes when we reflect on that which we did not do well. We reflect on the things that are not up to par. And that makes our reflection a difficult thing. But I was reminded of the scripture that we're going to talk about in a moment in Philippians 4 that reminded us the kinds of things to reflect on, to meditate on, to think on. Because when we start to look at our lives and reflect on our lives righteously, it changes the way we see ourselves. It changes the lens we look out of, and it changes the lens we look into. So that's what we're going to talk about today. For just a few moments, we're going to spend some time talking about how to have righteous reflection and the gift of reflecting righteously. That doesn't mean we're talking about morals and what you've done right or what you've done wrong. Righteous has more than one connotation. It's not just everything we do right. It's looking at our lives and applying the concepts and the principles that are righteous to how we see ourselves. And one of those things is grace. One of those things is grace. And we have to not only give others grace or expect grace from others, we have to give grace to ourselves. And we've talked about that before, but we talked about it in the moment. I'm saying that when you reflect on your life and you reflect on things that have been done that you thought were good, things that you thought made a difference, things that you thought you may have been able to do differently, do it righteously. Do it with grace. And recognize the human you cannot be perfect. And so therefore, when we hold ourselves accountable, that's wonderful. But when we hold ourselves accountable and we hold ourselves to a level of accountability that is not human, that is somehow expecting some supernatural way of looking at ourselves, we do ourselves an injustice, and injustice is not righteous. So my word for us today is to look at our lives in reflection from a place of righteous reflection and give ourselves the gift of that grace. When for those of you who are not on the front end of this thing, so to speak, but you feel like you're on the back end and that you got more years behind you than you do in front of you, it's easy to look back at our lives and think about all the things we would have done differently, we could have done differently, things I would have changed, things I wish I had done. And we find ourselves going into a cesspool of regret. And regret is not righteous reflection. Regret leaves us stuck in a place where we're looking at ourselves from a negative perspective that we can't see not only what God sees in us, we can't see what others see in us because we're so busy looking at our failures, looking at the things that we could have done differently, looking at the sin that's been in our lives, looking at the fact that we have not always treated ourselves well, that we've allowed ourselves to get caught up in emotional things that make us not do the best for ourselves that we can. And we can get stuck there, rewinding and retelling that story over and over again, forgetting that the pages of the story that we still have are still being written. And so therefore we can't get stuck in that place of being of lacking grace for ourselves, because we end up being stuck and in that maze of negativity. And that maze of negativity leads to things that we want to avoid, leads to depression, leads to not liking ourselves very much, leads to low self-worth and low self-esteem, because the rewind is often just the negatives. We don't rewind our good things. We don't give ourselves those kind of affirmations on a daily basis. We only think about affirmations most of the time when we're trying to pull ourselves out of something that we've got ourselves stuck in. But I wanted to encourage you today that there is a gift of righteous reflection. Righteous reflection. Let's look at this scripture. Paul wrote in Philippians 4:8, finally, brethren, and that's sisters and everybody else, whatever things are true, whatever things are noble, whatever things are just, that's righteous, y'all, whatever things are pure, whatever things are lovely, righteous, whatever things are of good report, if there be any virtue, if there is anything praiseworthy, meditate on these things. Righteous reflection is right here. How we reflect on the things that are true. Tell the truth about yourself. Yes, there's some things that we love to change, but there's some wonderful qualities, some wonderful things that make up who we are. So we want to reflect on that. Those things that are noble. What do we do that's noble and just and pure? What things are lovely? What things are of good report? And the virtue that comes from looking at ourselves through that lens will allow us to see ourselves in a way that God sees us. Because when we ask for forgiveness and those mercies are new every morning, and we thank God that those mercies are new every morning, we get to be in this place every day where we think on those things that are true and noble and just and pure and lovely, those things which are of good report. That we get to look at those things and have a righteous reflection of ourselves. And that's a gift. So my encouragement to you today and from every day going forward is to look through the lens of righteous reflection. To remember that there is nothing that you are experiencing that is new to mankind. God is not surprised by the things that are your struggles. God is not going to turn God's back on you because you have a bad day. You cannot continue to stew in that cesspool of rewind, because when you do, you forget those things that are lovely. You forget those things that are good report. You forget those things that are virtuous. You forget those things that are true about you. So I'm encouraging us today to receive the gift of righteous reflection. Yes, we're going to find some things we're not excited about, some things that we may not like, but balance it. Look at the good in you. Let the good in you go before you, so that when you're holding yourself accountable for those things that you think may need to be changed, that you don't do it without reflecting righteously on what is wonderful about who God created you to be. All that's in you is a gift. Reflect on those things. And those negative things, they'll take care of themselves. They really will. But if we stew in them, we forget that God is looking at us holistically, not just at our negatives. God is not ready to zap us for every little thing we've done. God gives us the gift of grace, the gift of forgiveness, the gift of start over. And so give yourself the same gift. Give yourself the gift of righteous reflection. See yourself whole, not just the side that you don't like. Because if you stay there, you will begin to see yourself in a light that God does not, which means darkness will slip in. And when darkness slips in, you got to fight to get the light back. But if you give yourself the gift of grace, the gift of righteous reflection, then the light stays on, even as you work through those things which you know God would have you to work through. I pray that that helps someone today, and that you will share this with someone else, even as we reflect on today, tomorrow. What did I do yesterday that is a blessing, before I think about the things that I should have done that I didn't do? So that we put grace before us, so that when we look at the things that we must look at, we don't get stuck. So, think on these things. Give yourself the gift of righteous reflection and be encouraged. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for letting me know you were here. And then now share this with someone else who needs to be lifted, because the gift of righteous reflection is a gift to give away. Be encouraged. See you soon.